So I want to also emphasize to you about this annual theme of unconditional love. And I want to do that by sharing with you my personal story about it. I also found that the Buddhists have the lotus flower as the ancient symbol for unconditional love. And that's so beautiful because it really comes from a mud flat. Yeah, it comes from where it's water, it's muddy. And it has to push its way up through the mud and then come into the sun. And then it opens up into this beautiful flower that you see here. So I am a survivor of trauma at a very early age. And it doesn't even matter what kind of trauma, whether it was sexual, whether it was somebody died or somebody did something, whatever, it doesn't matter. It was trauma. And at an early age where you don't have a language for what happened to you, you just embed all of that. It just goes into your cells and it lives with you. And it creates a pain body that lives with you, walks with you. Until I read Eckhart Tolle, I didn't have language for it, but now I understand it very, very well because I do my self-mastery work. But when I was a little girl growing up, I didn't know that. And I had all this rage and all this resentment and all this anger towards men, towards males. And I came from a family with an older sister and an older brother. I'm the baby. And my brother grew up in a household where there was mostly women and just my grandfather. We didn't grow up with my father. And so when I was growing up and I would get triggered, I would dump all of my rage and all of my anger onto my brother. And my brother never treated me in such a disrespectful or mean way in the ways that I would do him. And it wasn't like I did it all the time. Like, we got along, we laughed, we played. But when I got triggered, like one time I remember he was rubbing on my ear. He liked to rub on soft things on the satin on the blanket. And so he couldn't find his blanket. And so he reached out to get my ear. I bit him. I turned on him and bit him. Like, I was crazy. So anyway, all of that to say, once I did my self-mastery work and I realized my shadow side towards him, that I was using him as my emotional dumping ground, oh my God, what a realization. And of course, it wasn't just about him. It was every male that I was connected to in some way, shape, or form, who would allow it, I could do that too. I could dump on them. I could diminish them. I could, just be mean, really mean, especially with my tongue, So anyway, I did have an opportunity to ask for my brother's forgiveness as I was going through my healing work, which of course he gave because he had already given it. Because like I said, he never, ever lashed back at me or treated me in the way that I treated him. So as I was doing this work about unconditional love, I reached out to him. My brother's name is Ralph Matthews. And I got his permission so I could say his name because I want to honor him. Because I said, Ralph, I realized you were able to love me unconditionally. And I was so mean to you. I said, how did you do that? Why did you do that? And his first response to me was, and it still chokes me up, you were my sister. You're my sister. And, we got taught unconditional love by mostly our grandmother because her oldest son, she had 6 children, was a black sheep of the family. And as he got to be a man, he had done his work, right? His pain body take over. So he was always looking for money from her or complain or whatever. But it would be on Sundays, at least once a month, maybe twice a month, that he'd call begging for money or whatever. And she was just always, always willing to help him, worried about him, asking him when he's coming home. She just loved on him. And at first we couldn't understand it, but then she kept doing, she was consistent with it. So we realized, she loves him unconditionally because that's her son. And so it was teaching us that that's what you do with family. And so my brother could apply that to me. But I said to him, but you could have been mean back to me. You didn't do that. And, he said that, well, you all didn't get out into the world in the way I did because you were girls and they didn't let people into the house that didn't know their parents. So I got out and I got about. And what my brother was saying, I believe, is that, he was burned before he was a year old, very bad burns on his face and on his arms. And when he was growing up, he got teased. He was called a monster, that kind of thing. So Ralph was this really great spirit, came in the world, and he had to learn how to love himself in order to exist, because that could always come up for him. And he was then able to recognize my crazy, and he knew it didn't have anything to do with him, because he hadn't done anything to me. And he was just able to really trust, and I guess hope that one day I'd stop being mean to him. It took me into my 40s, but I finally did. And now we have just a loving, loving relationship. He's one of my most favorite people in the world. And whenever I get really sick, yeah, it's Ralph I call, because just hearing his voice, it calms me down. And he's always giving me hope and saying, hang in there, it's going to be okay. You got this. But unconditional love, the experience of it changed my life for my brother, because it's because of my brother that I was able to do the work that I did with men involved in the criminal justice system. When I sat in a circle of men who were in a domestic violence program, I was never afraid of them. I never judged them. I just loved on them, because I could see my brother, I could see my grandfather, I could see my uncle, it was like their family, and it's going to be okay. And I can help them. I can help them self-master so that they stop hurting themselves and the people that they love. And that was my experience of it. So I share that story with you because I want you to really get the power of unconditional love, especially when you receive it from somebody else. And yes, in my life, I have given out unconditional love. See, I ain't like Ralph though. It take me a minute, because I'm a fire person, my brother's an earth person. So it take me a minute. I'd be really like, I just want to burn him up. I just want to tear him up. But then I stop. I remember Ralph, and I was like, no, you can do this. You can just let go, let God, stop thinking that what they said to you or what they did to you had anything to do with you. That's their stuff. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Absolutely. Now, this is definitely something you have to learn, something you have to practice. It's not easy, but this year, folks, whoo, we're going to be like these lotus flowers, and we're going to come up out of that mud and come into our beauty with unconditional love. Ashe.